Good day everyone, my name is Joseph Angelo M. Salerinos and I'm currently taking Bachelor of Science in Civil Engineering major in Structural. Now, I will report the Beyond Linearity topic. In Beyond Linearity, we should avoid the temptation to collapse all forms of linear perspectives under a single logic. However, just because something looks as though it is obeying similar rules of internal order doesn't mean that it's attempting to do some same sort of things. Other culture may use elements of linear perspectives but with a different set of imperatives. Example of this is Japanese ukiyo-e or the floating world wood prints. These are generally considered by art historians to have been developed out of Chinese wood blocks prints, which incorporated a Western or linear perspective. It would be common sense, one might argue, to say that ukiyo-e, therefore not really Japanese, but inherently like both their Chinese and Western antecedents. But this really can't be supported as we look at the picture. The Japanese ukiyo-e is not realistic, unlike in Western terms. They produce some realistic images. Example of this is the artwork of Francisco Goya, which is the girl who's riding his horse. So, Western artists like the Spaniard Francisco Goya were producing realistic images that incorporated vanishing point and geometrical arrangement associated with linear perspective. Nor does it convey the volumetric quality or depth and three-dimensionality by so many artists. Moreover, to argue the meaning of the logic are the same because a similar technique is being used would be to do a violence to what Japanese writers the time considered these ukiyo-e prints were representing and how they were representing it. The point of the context of the ukiyo-e works were represent the floating world of the Japanese court in the 17th century to capture the life of and values and aspiration of the people. According to Veltman in 1998, living only for the moment, turning our full attention to the pleasure of the moon, the snow, the cherry blossom, and the maple leaves, singing songs, drinking wine, diverting ourselves in just floating, caring not a whit for pauperism staring us in the face, refusing to be disinhearted, like guards floating with river current. This what we call floating world. So the story of ukiyo-e does not then bear a resemblance to contemporary works in Europe or arguably in Africa or Oceania. So still very work perspective some sort of. According to Panofsky 1991, it need not necessarily to be the vanishing point perspective associated with Western tradition, but it must deal with space and relation Maps are one of the several important visual technologies render space and permit a knowledge of place to viewers with appropriate literacy. Although a map looks nothing like landscape or cityscape, it represents the symbol or the post office sign, the one-way arrow on appropriate roads, the blue squiggle of a river, and the scale tell us how navigate space. So according to Michael D. Sergio writes about various perspectives in his works on special practices. He begins his chapter by looking down on Manhattan from a skyscraper high above the ceiling, and writes of this pleasure of seeing the whole, of looking down, a totalizing, most immoderate of human text. In fact, by looking down on a city, much a cartographic insists, we look down from a very high point of the city, is reduced from living world into semi-static text. Those at ground level, though see very different text. They are walkers whose bodies follow the thick and themes of urban text without being able to read it. Urban walkers pick their way blindly with regard to the whole text or map of the city. Map readers, in a sense, are blind with regards to everydayness of moving about on the streets, but maps give them considerable literacy about bridge and buildings. Other kinds of perspectives found in many video games, especially those which make high quality graphics to convey the players to the story and action and of the game. Example of these are the Edge of Emperor series. This, as we see in a side, the picture of or the map. This manages several types of perspectives and demands sophisticated visual ability of readers, users, much of the matters on screen readers. Matters on a screen has a simple two-dimensional perspective. It is iconography or text printed on a screen, as it might have been printed on paper. The player's score in the bottom, player score in the bottom right corner, the portrait and name of the protagonist, and bottom left, the life and energy icon at the top. The simple story of the game, or sometimes instruction or rule on the rules of the game, crawling along the very bottom of the screen. Off to center right is a simple map of the fantasy world, showing where the protagonist is in relation to topographical features. Another two-dimensional rendering space representing the folds, dimensions, and curves of the world on a flattened screen as a flat object. The two-dimensional curves of the two-dimensional perspective lays out information which is there not you focus attention but quick scanning therefore, while the players get on with real object playing the game. For this, the graphic resort to three-dimensional effect because the point of it is to secure the player's attention and draw the player into the world of the game. A world that satisfies and the demand reality effect. Demand reality effect. It does this by unfolding the action of the game across the whole screen or overlap in the place by basic two-dimensional information as movie-like image characterized running, leaping, fighting, and picture plane. Perspective render depth space. Heightened moments and perspective is distorted from dramatic effect, sword sweeping, trail techniques, attributes great power and swordsman because appears that very shattered by stroke and special dimensions of the game or story. World are heightened by use atmospheric of the game perspective. The further away object or people should be the fuzzier their focus becomes. At times the game graphic makes use of forced perspective, a moment great rage, powerful gestures, and great speed on a part character rendered by bending the object about them and distorting the real spatial relation to the character from all attention is centered on a character and the viewer feels. Physically hold into the scene, these various uses perspective combined to provide a whole world of game. All involving experience that means the player becomes entirely absorbed the act first of seeing or watching and allied with that causing the object in a field of vision to move it predictable away. So that's all for my topic and thank you for listening.